Hey Brush Monkeys, Tom here, and I am at the world famous Nelson-Atkins Museum of Art in beautiful Kansas City, Missouri, and we're here to talk about non-metallic metals, what they are, what they're not, and some things to take into consideration that may explain why you might be struggling with them a little bit. I know I do. But for right now, it is cold out here and I'm starting to lose some daylight, so I'm going to take this party inside, all right? All right, see you soon. All right, so I hope the microphone's picking this up because I can't be real loud in here. So non-metallic metals, what are they? Essentially, it's just a way of painting the metal parts of a model, the steels, the golds, etc., without using paint containing metallic pigments. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. And the reason for this is non-metallic metals originated as an oil painting technique used by the old masters, Rembrandt, Da Vinci, Holbein, guys like that back in the day, and they didn't have access to paints that had metallic pigments. Metallic pigments weren't a thing back then. There was a later development. So that's basically all it is, and it's become a big deal in the miniature painting world over the last few years. When I took my break and I was gone away from the scene for 15 years, it wasn't a thing when I left. Nobody painted non-metallic metals, nobody painted with oil paints on miniatures. It just wasn't a thing. And then I come back and all of a sudden it's like the thing that you have to be able to do in order to compete as a miniature painter. In order to be any kind of miniature painting competition, you have to be able to do non-metallic metals. If you don't paint non-metallic metals on your figure, you're basically saying, I don't want to win. And so that's why I decided to do this video. So we're going to take a look at some paintings that have, and kind of show you the non-metallic metal technique as it was used back then. And we're going to talk about how that applies to miniature painting, and like I said, we're going to go over some things that may explain why you're struggling with it. I know I do. It's still a technique I'm trying to learn, and I've been painting for years. So, all right, so we're going to go ahead and pause now, and I'm going to go find some paintings, and we'll see what we can see, yeah? All right, so this is a perfect example of what I was talking about with the non-metallic metals. You can see the armor of the soldier is not painted with metallic pigmented paint. Instead, it shows steel is reflected in shades of gray and black and browns and yellows that reflect the environment around him. And yet it still has the illusion of being polished metal. This is what we're trying to achieve when we're painting non-metallic metals. Now, the thing about this painting, though, that you have to keep in mind is this is a fixed perspective painting. You are only ever going to see this armor from this angle. Even if you move around it, it's still only going to be that same picture. The light reflection is only ever going to come from the same direction. So you're not going to changeable light. And that's the problem you're going to run into with the figures, is it's variable perspective and variable light source. So we'll take a look at a couple other paintings and you'll see what I mean. Okay. All right, here's another good example of non-metallic metals. You'll see the armor of the soldiers. Steel armor is painted in grays and whites and black, and a couple of browns and other colors to reflect our surroundings. The golds are painted in yellows and browns with some very bright yellow highlights on there. But again, no metallic pigments. Now, you may be wondering why they didn't paint metallic pigments, because metallic pigments didn't actually come about until like 1930. So a lot of the old paintings aren't going to have metallic pigments. Anything prior to 1930, you're kind of out of luck there. But we'll take a look at a couple other paintings. Okay, here again, you've got grays, white, black, a couple other colors to reflections to represent steel armor. And again, the big problem you're going to run into with this is that you're only ever going to see this from this perspective. Even if you move around the painting, you're only ever going to see this guy from this perspective. The lighting is only going to be from this perspective. It's a fixed perspective painting, and that's kind of the deal with two-dimensional art. We'll go into the next room here and I'll show you how light reflects on an actual suit of armor, and you'll see where the problem lies in painting figures. Okay, here we have two 16th century suits of armor, and they are of steel armor, like you see in the paintings we've looked at. But the big difference here is, because this is an actual artifact, if you move around it and change your perspective, you can see how the light source changes on it and how the shadows and highlights change with your perspective. That is going to be the biggest problem we run into with this. So that's the trick with non-metallic metals, is because the paintings they're based on are two-dimensional fixed perspective paintings. The light source, the shadows, the perspective of them is never going to change. When you're painting on a figure, your perspective of the figure is going to change as you turn the figure, as you look at it from different angles. If it's a competition piece and it's put in a display case, that is going to change. Excuse me. If it's put in a display case, that's going to change based on how people are looking at it and where they're coming, what angle they're coming at it from. And so that's going to be the biggest problem you have with painting non-metallic metals, is trying to adapt a two-dimensional fixed perspective art technique and apply it to a three-dimensional variable perspective figure. And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with that. A little bit later, I'll show you some tips and tricks to show you how to get around that and how to basically kind of force it onto your figure. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and pause because I'm getting some ugly looks from the docents and I'm probably going to get thrown out of here pretty soon. So the takeaway I wanted you to get from this is that oil painting is a two-dimensional fixed perspective technique, and trying to apply it to a three-dimensional variable perspective object, you're going to run into some problems with that. And a lot of people do, and a lot of people struggle with it. But like I said, we're going to show you some techniques and try to get you straightened out and figure that out, all right? Okay, see you in a little bit. All right, so I'm back, and I kind of lied. I said at the beginning of this video there wasn't going to be any lab, it was all going to be lecture, but there's going to be a little bit of lab, and I'm just going to cover some tips and tricks that may make your non-metallic metal painting a little bit easier, okay? And the first one that I found online that I think you're going to like is, and I'm demonstrating this on a Reaper Bones iron golem because A, I think he'll look really good in the steel non-metallic metal, and two, he's a pretty big figure, so you can kind of see what I'm doing, and it'll make the instructions a little clearer as I go. But as you can see, I've got him assembled. I've got him put on a slightly bigger base than what he came with. I'm using an old Citadel base for that. And then I've primed him with black spray paint, black spray primer from the Army Painter. So the first thing you're going to do with this is you're going to, before you put any other paint on him, you're going to use gloss, if I can get that without the camera blocking out, you're going to use gloss acrylic, you're going to use gloss varnish on him. You're going to take just a primered figure and coat it in a coat of gloss varnish. So I'm going to go ahead and go do that now, and I'll pause here, and then we'll come back when it's all varnished up and show you what it looks like and go on to the next step. Okay, so I'll be right back. Okay, so we've got the iron golem all gloss sprayed, and you can see he's all shiny and everything. So the next step, and this is an instruction I found online, so I hope this works, is you're going to adjust your lighting to where you want the lighting to fall on the model. Okay, so I'm going to turn off some of these lights so that the lighting we're getting is coming from the one direction we actually want it to come from on the figure. Then you'll take your camera, come on, okay, no plan ever survives live pictures. Okay, adjust your lighting to where you want it on the figure, and then you're going to take a picture of your figure. Hopefully that'll focus, right? Okay. Then, and I hope you can follow along with this, open up your Photos tab. Open up the photo you just took. Okay. There's your guy. He's all shiny and everything, right? I'm going to turn some of these lights back on now so I can actually see what I'm doing. Alright, and you're going to click on Edit. When the little edit thing comes up, what you're going to do is you're going to turn your contrast all the way up. Like that. You're going to turn your highlights all the way up. You're going to turn your shadows all the way down. That's right. Turn the shadows all the way up. Bear with me. Like I said, I've never actually done this before. Yeah. Okay. Turn your contrast all the way up. Turn your highlights all the way up and your shadows all the way down. Just like that. Okay? When you back up, you got to back out of it. Click on Save. And it'll go through this, go through this, and go through this. Now, when that comes up, what you have now is a nice little reference photo of where your highlights and shadows are going to be on that. Okay, you can print this off and it'll show you where you're going to put your highlights and shadows on the figure. So that's one tip you can do. The other tip that you could do is, once you've got that all good to go, let's take an example from the Scale 75 non-metallic metals paint set. Okay, this is their instructions for their non-metallic metal paints. And it says step 1 is apply a layer of graphite SC3, which is right here. Okay. And then step 2 is add some of this nacre to the graphite and apply that as step 2. Now what they're leaving out is, while that seems like you just paint the graphite on there and then add a drop of nacre to the graphite and paint that on there, it's leaving out a bunch of steps. In fact, it's leaving out about 8 steps. So what you want to do, what you actually want to do, is you're going to get some of these. This is Artist Loft plastic paint strips. And I bought these at Michael's for about $2 for a pack of 2 of these. And all it is a strip of little plastic paint pods. Okay, and I bought a bunch of these because these are going to go with every paint set you've got. Every transition between paints. When okay, so you've got these 2 paints, right? When you transition between these 2 paints, what you're going to do is you're going to paint on glazes of your first color until you've got a nice base color to go on. Then you're going to take 8 drops of this to 1 drop of this. thin that down to a glaze, and then 7 and 2, then 6 and 3, and so on and so forth, all the way through all these little pods, thinning each one down to a glaze consistency until you're down to 1 drop of this and 8 drops of this. Then you'll make a glaze of just this on the figure. And so that is 10 steps in between those two colors. Okay, so it's that color, then 8 combinations of the two, and then that color. All of them thinned, all of them glazed. And I use, I've got a little dropper bottle of X20A thinner from Tamiya. You can use Lamian medium, you can use a lot of different stuff, but that's all it is. It's just thinned down, and you're going to glaze it on over and over and over again until it's like ridiculous numbers of glaze. The thing you have to remember, and you kind of have to make your peace with the fact that this is not going to be a fast process. Okay, this is going to be an excruciatingly long process. It's not something you're going to bang out in a weekend or a week or anything like that. Transitioning between, let's see, this is 5 steps just for the steel non-metallic metal in this set, and that's going to be 50 steps. Even if you only do 1 a day, it's going to be more than a month just to complete that process. And you're going to need to do that with every single plate on this guy, and he's got a lot of them. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and mix up the transition between these two and show you what I mean by glaze consistency and that kind of thing, and then we'll come back and I'll have put the paint on the guy, and you can see what I'm talking about. All right, see you soon. Okay, so I've got the intermediate glazes, as I like to call them, mixed up. And the great thing about these little paint strips is, once you've got the paint and the thinner and all these little things, and you've got them all closed up, make sure they're all closed tight, you can take the entire strip and shake all of them all at once in between steps. Okay, so now you've got the graphite color here, and then you've got the next step, which has a little bit of the nacre in it. And then as you go down the line, you can see, hopefully you can see, I've got a little bit more of the nacre in each step until you get down to the end. It's almost all this next color, the nacre color. So there you go. You glaze this, then you glaze each one of these on, then you glaze this on. And like I said, it's a very long, slow process. As you can see, I've got his one leg. That's 2 layers of glaze on there of just the graphite. That's not even adding in all this stuff. It's just 2 layers of the graphite glaze. And I'm going to have to do a lot more of that to get a decent smooth transition, to get a decent smooth base color on there before I can even move on to the next transitional color. So like I said, it's not something you're going to be able to do in a weekend. It's not something you're going to be able to bang out in a day or a week or even a month. This is something that's going to take a long time. And I think that's one of the problems that I have with non-metallic metals, is I just flat out don't have the patience for this. It's crazy the amount of time it takes to do something like this. So I'm probably going to have this iron golem in the background of just about every video for the foreseeable future, making gradually a little more and more progress as I work on this guy in between videos. And then at some point in the future, I'll have a video saying, oh hey, I got the iron golem done, here's what he looks like, and we'll have like a non-metallic metal follow-up video that'll show the finished product. But it's going to be a long time in the making, because like I said, this is 2 layers, well right now it's 3 layers of glaze because I just put another one on, and that's 3 layers of glaze on 1 leg. That's not even the entire rest of the figure yet, so it's going to take a minute. So that wraps up my video on the non-metallic metals. I hope the tips and tricks about the glazing. There's, oh, one more thing, the glaze consistency. It's hard to specify exactly what ratio of paint to glaze you want, but basically it's, if you could brush it onto your finger and still see your fingernail through it, it's kind of, a lot of people say milky consistency, and that's about what you're looking for there. It's just the consistency of milk or dirty water. You don't want it thick enough to be paint, but that's what you're looking for. So that'll wrap up my video on non-metallic metal theory. I hope these tips and tricks have helped you a little bit. I hope the history of it has kind of given you some insight as to why this has become such a big deal in the miniature painting art community. And if at all possible, I would strongly recommend going out and buying something like the Scale 75 non-metallic metal paint sets. They come in steel, which is the one I'm using now, and they also come in golden, well, they call it golden copper, but it's really what it is it's, yeah, it's got one set of instructions for gold and one for copper, and this one covers steel and blue steel, azure steel. So go out and get these little instructions. Each of the paint sets comes with this little booklet of instructions, and really, because of the number of paints that come in these, like each of these is 8 different paints, which is really nice, and it gives you a nice transition between the base to the lightest portion, the lightest colors, and shadows and reflections and highlights and all that kind of thing, and it covers all of that in one paint set. Just like I said, get yourself some of these little paint strips, and use these to transition between the colors, because while the Scale 75 sets are nice, they don't fully cover the transition between the two colors, and they make it look like it's a lot easier than it actually is. So yeah, that wraps up my video on non-metallic metals. I hope you find something in here to help you. I hope after reviewing this video I find something to help me, because like I said, I'm still kind of rubbish at this and still trying to learn this technique myself. But it has gotten to be like the big thing in miniature painting to do non-metallic metals for competitions anyway. I wouldn't recommend doing this if you have to paint a whole army for a game, but if you're doing one piece for competition, yeah, knock it out. So yeah, that will do for right now, and I will see you guys next time. Bye. Hey Brush Monkeys, Tom from Flying Monkey Studios here. If you like what you see, click like. If you want to find out when new videos get posted, click subscribe. Comment below on what you want to see on future videos. Visit our Patreon site for lots of ways that you can support me in doing what I do. You can also visit our Instagram and Facebook pages to see all the miniatures that I paint on this channel, and see how you can get your hands on one of your own. So thanks a lot for your time, and thanks for watching my videos, and I will see you guys later. Bye.